Electronic utility meters represent criminal trespass by your utility company if that meter is installed on your property without your consent and without full disclosure. Of course, we all know about that brand of meter with the initials S and M, but I'm using the generic name electronic utility meter so the people I'm calling criminals can't sue me. The utility industry has a record of attacking their accusers. Yes, they are criminals, for not one, but at least 4 different reasons: radiation, fire hazard, dirty electricity, and surveillance. All of those things violate the law or cause damage to your health, safety, or rights, and your electronic utility meter does all of those things. I'm going to give you full and clear information establishing the criminal malfeasance of your utility company staff and their friends, and I have some solutions for you. Utility companies like to pull some cute tricks when you accuse them of committing those 4 different crimes represented by electronic utility metering. They like to bully and intimidate the customer who complains of their crimes. Typical of the guilty criminal, they like to threaten those who complain. So they threaten their customers with extra fees and shut off of their electric service when the customer objects to criminal trespass with unsafe and unlawful utility metering. Bullying and intimidation do not constitute rebuttal to an allegation. And even denial is not sufficient in a criminal complaint. The crime must be remedied, or the allegation must be rebutted with fact, law, and evidence. The criminal must have an alibi, and your utility company does not have that, so they change the subject. They accuse the victim of being the bad guy. Your utility company will not rebut allegations of committing surveillance, radiation, dirty electricity, and fire hazard on your property because those things have all been shown to be true, and to deny them would be perjury. Some of those violations are even admitted in the utility company literature, as if by publishing those violations as utility company policy, they would no longer be crimes. Sometimes when you file a complaint of the 4 crimes, they deny 1 and ignore the rest. It is important to remember to never drop any allegations simply because your utility company fails to respond to the allegation. Failure to rebut an allegation is an admission of guilt under the law by the principle referred to as acquiescence by silence. There are 4 different crimes, and your utility company, their employees and executives, are very likely guilty of all of them if they are guilty of the 1 crime of installing the electronic meter on your home. There are instructions and templates for filing a complaint in the form of a notice of liability at emfhelpcenter.com on the home page, center column, under the title Solutions. The only way your utility company is not guilty of criminal wrongdoing is if they are offering you a no-cost option for a traditional electromechanical meter, the kind your grandma had. Never use the term analog meter when requesting safe and lawful metering. The utilities misuse the term analog to refer to an electronic meter that does not transmit as much as another meter. So they have redefined the word analog in order to lie to their customers. The analog meters they offer you are nearly always electronic meters and usually are just about as harmful and dangerous as any other electronic utility meter. Because the problem of unsafe and unlawful utility metering spans all states of the Union, I will not refer to any law of any single state. I will cite federal law and constitutional law, but you will find that most of the laws and violations I cite are also covered in state statutes, state constitutions. So both criminal and civil actions can be generally brought against utility companies and their executives in both state and federal courts, depending on which violations you may choose to report. The first laws that utility companies and their executives are breaking are the 4th Amendment of the Bill of Rights for privacy invasion and Title 18 United States Code sections 2511, 2512, and 2518. That title is called the Electronic Communications Privacy Act. That act provides for criminal and civil penalties, including punitive awards to the victim. That victim would be any utility customer whose house or office has had an electronic utility meter installed at any time. Nearly every electronic utility meter made since the year 2000 is an unlawful surveillance device because it collects highly personal data on time of day or daily usage of electricity from the utility customer. Advanced utility meters, as they are called, process, store, transmit, and commercially exploit highly personal data about the lives and living habits of you, your family, and your guests. They do this whether or not the meter transmits wirelessly. By looking at your meter surveillance data, utility companies can identify appliances and devices and make record of each time they are turned on and off. They associate this data with the names of the account holder and occupant and build a personal dossier on the activities and personality types in the household. The utility companies have sophisticated computer systems, software, and algorithms which profile occupants of the house in behavioral and demographic categories for the purpose of commercial and legal exploitation of that data. Anyone who is complicit in the installation of those utility meters is a criminal under the law. The way that utility surveillance data is collected leads to a string of separate and additional criminal acts. One of those is fire hazard. Traditional electromechanical meters were very reliable and robust devices with heavy surge protection, which is necessary due to the random occurrence of grid line surges, which can suddenly shoot as much as 20,000 volts into your service panel, which can easily destroy your appliances, set fire to your home, and even electrocute occupants. Electronic utility meters have no surge protectors. This seems insane, and any electrical engineer can tell you that it is insane. But the engineers who design electronic utility meters are apparently insane. They seem to believe that putting your family's lives at risk is a small price to pay for some juicy lifestyle data on you and your family. The components of the surveillance device that meter manufacturers put in their utility meters are made up of delicate electronics and circuits which are flammable, which cannot withstand a 1,000-volt gridline surge, much less a 20,000-volt surge. Under no stretch of reasoning do electronic devices belong in a place where there are high-voltage surges. 5 or 10,000 volts is enough to explode any electronic utility meter into flames. This does burn down houses and kill people. Electronic utility meters have burned tens of thousands of homes in the last 10 years. In Stockton, California alone, 5,000 meters burned up one day when a truck hit a utility pole. And yet, the utility companies still put no surge protectors in the meters for a very strange reason. The surge protector simply does not work if the voltage surge is that close to the electronic surveillance device. Even with a surge protector, the electronic meter will explode in flames, whereas a traditional electromechanical meter without any electronics inside would not. You see, the surveillance device is in the circuit of the home, and a flameout is inevitable in a grid line surge. This is reckless and gross negligence at the very best, and intentional public endangerment and terrorism at its worst. The omission of surge protectors from utility meters and the inclusion of flammable components in those meters is violation of 18 U.S. Code Section 1365, tampering with consumer products in a way to cause danger of death or bodily injury. That federal code calls for prison time for any such tampering and stronger sentences for those who actually do cause bodily injury or death. That would be the policy-making executives at your utility company. The utility meter is a consumer product when it is installed on a private home, and it is tampered with by omission of the surge protector, and that tampering has caused bodily injury and death. On the lack of surge protection alone, the installation of these meters is a serious and punishable crime. Federal laws on arson only apply to federal property and lands. So look up arson laws in your state and local statute and codes and add that to your legal citations along with Title 18 U.S. Code. If your electronic utility meter ever catches on fire, it is arson, not to mention gross negligence, because your utility company executives have known about the fire hazard problem for as long as electronic utility meters have existed. Now we get to the practice of installing a radio transmitter on private property without consent. For starters, that violates FCC regulations, and the utility company is subject to those regulations every time they register and license a transmitting utility meter. Go to www.fcc.gov and click on for consumers to file a complaint about an FCC-licensed radio transmitter being installed on your property without your consent. To get a federal bureaucracy to actually take action may take a lot of complaints, but think how many people are being violated by electronic utility meters. Let's get those complaints in. At least we will see whose side the FCC is on. Of course, those radio frequencies are not good for living things, people included. The RF signals are powerful enough to penetrate buildings, so your body doesn't stand a chance. I have taken thousands of calls from people who got sick when their electronic utility meters were installed. They complain of insomnia, memory loss, inability to concentrate, fatigue, mood alterations, damaged relationships, skin problems, even cancer and heart attacks. Any transmitting electronic utility meter can shut off a pacemaker with no warning at all. At emfhelpcenter.com, you can contact us for general assistance and basic solutions to many of these issues. And we also have contacts for building biologists who are certified technical experts in electromagnetic frequency environmental pollution if you want a comprehensive inspection and report on the safety of your home or office. Last but not least are electric transients, also called dirty electricity. This is very important to understand because some people who think that radio frequencies are affecting their health are actually being affected by dirty electricity. Here's how and why your utility company made dirty electricity a problem. Your utility company needs to power the surveillance device in the utility meter they gave you. To do that, the company has to steal some electricity from you. And yes, you pay for that electricity on your bill for power that does nothing but run the surveillance device that spies on you and your family. The way they steal that electricity from you is with one of those flammable electronic devices in your meter called a switching mode power supply. This little device is very disrupting to the current coming into your home. It's like putting a stick in a stream. It creates turbulence in the current flow. And this damages your appliances and makes people sick with dirty electricity broadcasting from all of the house wiring. So you're not safe from this anywhere in the house. It does not matter where the utility meter is. These electric fields can project up to 8 feet from any part of your house wiring right into your living spaces. This dirty electricity is especially disruptive to sleep and causes any number of health issues for people who are exposed for long periods. Cancer has been clearly associated with exposure to dirty electricity by many peer-reviewed and published scientific studies. Luckily, this can usually be fixed with an electric line conditioner, a device installed by your service panel, and an investigation of your house wiring by an experienced electrician who can fix any wiring problems that might also be causing dirty electricity. Details of these solutions are on emfhelpcenter.com. If you suspect that electric fields may be a problem in your house, when you go to bed, shut off any of your breaker circuits that go to or through your bedroom for a few nights and see if your sleep improves. As I mentioned before, utility companies are typically very unreasonable and even hostile when they are asked to correct these problems. We have found over and over that customer service people are trained to lie and bully their customers in order to force their surveillance meters onto people's homes. We have now found that people have little success when they attempt to replace their own meters in order to force the utility company into legal compliance. That surveillance data is very valuable, and it turns out that the utility companies have no reason to obey the law because the police and courts are so ignorant, corrupt, or incompetent that literally no utility company executive or employee has been prosecuted for the violation and crimes I have pointed out in this video, which have been committed now literally millions of times. One might ask the question, where exactly is our Justice Department these days? They seem to have no trouble assisting utility companies in enforcing company policies for which they happen to have no jurisdiction whatsoever, but not for crimes when they violate us. When the people who are supposed to be protecting society simply choose not to do so, we have to be very careful and thoughtful not to antagonize that protected monopoly, the utility company, which is enjoying their criminal violation of our health, safety, rights, and privacy with impunity. We have this very dangerous situation where we must be under contract with criminals who have the privilege and incentive to do us harm and are doing so without restraint. So we have updated and changed the recommended strategies to deal with this very unfortunate situation. At emfhelpcenter.com, we have free download documents, templates, and links, detailed step-by-step information to provide solutions and keep you out of trouble, and a limited selection of key products that you may want to help you get the job done. As time permits, we receive and return phone calls if you need more personal help. Contacts are on that webpage. If you work for a utility company, we will be glad to advise you on how to come into compliance with the law on your metering policies. Of course, the first step is issuing a purchase order for a large number of electromechanical meters. Once you do that, the rest is very easy. Simply give one to anyone who asks for it, as the law requires. You'll save a lot of money, too, because the electromechanical meters are very inexpensive, and they don't require computer and data transmission infrastructure. You're still charging us to read the meters on site, so that should not be a problem. But I'm sure your customers will be happy to report the readings if you don't feel like sending out your meter readers. But for the rest of us, let us wish for a day when we will have a world without electronic utility meters, when we will no longer have to hassle with criminal misconduct by our utility companies and a complicit justice system.